And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Friday, December 22nd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get right into what we were going to talk about. So, late last night, we got news that Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was at this point the top free agent on the market with Ohtani off the board, we got news that he signed with, well, the team that Shohei Ohtani signed with, and that is the LA Dodgers. He is now going to be a part of that rotation, which they also added Tyler Glasnow, obviously. And, of course, Ohtani's not going to be pitching this year, but yeah, so he goes to the Dodgers, and the contract is, it's pretty significant, of course. It's for 10 years, $325 million. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. Actually, 12 years, $325 million. And yeah, it is just, it's unbelievable that the Dodgers were able to pull this off. And you kind of figured they were still going. I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of thought they were out on him after they acquired Glasnow, but fortunately that wasn't the case because obviously the top two favorites going in, it seemed, were the Yankees and the Dodgers. And, there were teams that made offers. The Phillies were a team that made an offer. The Mets made an offer. The Yankees, I think, went to about $300 million. But that's as far as they went. The Mets, I think the Mets offered the same amount as the Dodgers. But, so the Mets, they offered $325 million. The Yankees offered $300 million. But obviously for Yamamoto, the Dodgers are on the West Coast. Ohtani's there because he did talk about how he still wants to play with, Japanese players, and obviously Ohtani just went there. So, that's where he's going. And so 12 years, not 10, 12 years, $325 million, and that he joins that rotation. With Tyler Glasnow, obviously, you got some other guys that are coming back from injuries. Walker Buehler, we'll see with him making a return. And we still don't know what the story is with Kershaw, because Kershaw wasn't 100% sure on, if he's coming back or not. And maybe with this move, that kind of shows you that, maybe he isn't, but who knows? I mean, I think, with what the team is right now, I mean, I feel like Kershaw probably would want to come back because of how loaded the roster is, So, and I just realized I didn't get into what else we were going to talk about. So along with this, as we continue our discussion here, we're just going to talk about like other MLB news, other offseason news. We'll get into, who's the top remaining free agents. We'll talk about that, and then we'll get into just going over the biggest, contracts in MLB history. So that'll be the final part of the show, because Ohtani and Yamamoto's contracts are in there, of course. So that's what the rest of the show is going to be about. But yeah, so Yamamoto's off the market. With the Yankees, they really tried. The Met, and as well as the Mets. I mean, Yamamoto met with them twice. The Yankees, they gave Yamamoto his own Yankee jersey because they designated 18 for him, and they gave it to him. And even if he didn't sign with them, the Yankees were like, keep the jersey. So that's what ended up happening. So he gets a free Yankee jersey that he could put, in his wherever he's staying, and at home, whether it's, I guess when he goes back to Japan, that's what he'll do. He'll frame it, put it somewhere. But, I mean, for me as a Yankee fan, I'm not. There's definitely a lot of people that are upset, and I understand. I mean, I just from a Yankee perspective, for me personally, I think, well, they still got they got to figure something out. Now they got to move to Plan B. Now that he's with the Dodgers, but for me, this opens up the door for them to, give Juan Soto a lot of money in the offseason. Because for me, if you bring in Yamamoto, you're probably not getting Soto back. Like, you probably have no chance. And now, you don't get Yamamoto. Well, you could take all that money you would have gave to Yamamoto and give it to Juan Soto. So, Yankees got some work they got to do with the rotation and the bullpen. So hopefully they can get that done. But that's my opinion on it. Now, for baseball as a whole, it's not good because, they go and get Ohtani, and what they did with Ohtani's contract, myself included, I'm not happy about it. Nobody's happy about it. I wouldn't want my own team doing that either, because it's just not fair. But I know it's coming from a Yankee fan, but still, like, it's not fair for the other teams. But if it's completely legal, then there's really nothing you can do about it. So, I think it is ridiculous that you're going to have Ohtani making $2 million for 10 years, $2 million each year for the next 10 years, and then the remaining $680 million he's going to get paid once he retires. Because, that opens the door for the Dodgers to do whatever they want. I mean, they got Mookie Betts, they got Freddie Freeman. I mean, now you sign Yamamoto. You just gave Glasnow the extension when you acquired him. I mean, they're printing money right now, essentially. So, you're talking about who the Yankees returning to the evil empire getting Soto. Well, I think the evil empire is out in L.A. right now, because what they're doing is, to go along with Ohtani's contract, it's unprecedented, But yeah, with Yamamoto now off the books, I mean, now that's kind of going to get the market to move a little bit here with, some of these other free agent pitchers that are out there, Montgomery, Blake Snell, who we'll talk about later in the show. But yeah, I mean, I'm not as disappointed as I think a lot of Yankee fans are with, us being the other top team that was in on him. Because I feel like there's other things that they can do. They could trade for pitchers, So, and again, I want to keep Juan Soto long term. So I want that money to be given to him, after this year, because right now he's just a 1-year rental. So, if the Yankees go out and have a good season, and he has a good season, then maybe we got a good chance of getting him back. So, but if we got Yamamoto, I'd be really excited. But and at the same time, we would only have Soto for 1 year. But now we have a chance to maybe keep him long term, because we're not giving that money to Yamamoto. So, but yeah, I mean, you feel bad for the smaller market teams. It's just like, for some people, they're going to be like, well, what's even the point of playing next year? Well, at the same time, too, is, you see what people are saying on social media. Well, the Dodgers are going to go to the playoffs, and they're going to find a way to lose. Yeah, because that's what's happened. I mean, the team they had a couple years ago that lost to the Padres, I mean, that team could have been the team that went all the way. The year before that, you trade for Scherzer, you trade for Trey Turner, you lose to the Braves. So, listen, they got Ohtani now. You bring in Yamamoto, Glasnow. Yeah, listen, this team is going to win over 100 games if everything goes right. This team has the potential to break the single season, win total with the roster that they have. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. It's a long season. Anything can happen. And the other thing too is, like people are saying, Yamamoto hasn't pitched a single inning yet in the majors, and he got all that money. And listen, we've seen a lot of Japanese players come over and be successful. And I expect him to do the same. I mean, the guy won 3 MVPs in Japan. I mean, he should be good. He should be good here. I mean, Ohtani turned out, I would say Ohtani turned out okay. Matsui, Tanaka, Ichiro, those guys turned out okay. So, I mean, he's probably going to be the latest, Japanese player to find success here in the major leagues. So, but yeah, for my Met fan friends, I feel bad because, they're going to see him at least twice a year. We'll probably Yankees will probably see him when the Dodgers come to Yankee Stadium in 2024, because I believe, they're going to be coming to Yankee Stadium. Well, because now everybody's playing each other every year. But I know people are. I know on the Yes Network, John Flaherty said he thinks that it's going to be a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. I mean, I think the Dodgers will get there maybe, but not. I don't know about the Yankees right now because the Yankees still got a lot of holes in their pitching. But listen, I've been talking about for weeks how, we're waiting for, these moves to be made, and finally we got that. Ohtani's off the board, Yamamoto's off the board, Soto's been traded. So now we'll see where the rest of these free agents end up going. So, but, I think people are hoping that it wasn't going to be the Dodgers. I mean, I knew they were still in on him, but I was kind of hoping with them getting Glasnow that maybe they weren't going to, but, I was wrong, unfortunately. But listen, the rotation was a weakness for the Dodgers last year. I mean, that's why they got swept by the Diamondbacks. So they kind of fixed that. I mean, I don't know what the latest is on Walker Buehler, but you get him back too to go along with that rotation. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But, so another big free agent off the market. But let me know what you guys think about the deal. Yamamoto going to the Dodgers. I know, again, not a lot of people are happy today. I mean, listen, I'm not too thrilled about it with what the Dodgers are doing, but again, being a Yankee fan, what can I say? But again, you don't want to see your own team doing that. Like, again, I wouldn't want to see the Yankees doing that because it's, again, not fair, but it is what it is at this point. So, so that's pretty much it when talking about Yamamoto. Again, let me know what you guys think about the deal. And when we come back from our first break of the show, we're just going to go through some of the latest news, the other offseason news. There's actually going to be some rule changes for next year regarding the pitch clock and other stuff. So we'll get into that as well when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we're just going to go through some of the other latest news and headlines here in the offseason. So the first thing I want to get into is actually the rule changes. So there's going to be a pitch clock tweak. So the time between pitches with runners on base is now going to be 18. Is now 18 seconds. It was originally 20. But with the bases empty, it's still going to remain the same with the 15 seconds. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. Listen, honestly, like, the pitch clock worked. And I really didn't notice a difference last year. I thought it was going to be, like, so different watching games last year. Like, obviously you noticed the games were speeding up. But I didn't really notice a difference. Other than the games ended quicker. And even going to the few games that I did go to last year, I really didn't notice a difference. So, I mean, listen, I love the new rules. I love that the game is speeding up. I think it was great. So, I have no problem with it. But, yeah, so that just only speeds it up a little bit, even more, which is nice. So then also mound visits. So the number of mound visits per team will be reduced from 5 to 4. So, yeah, again, another way to just continuing to speed up the game. Because, again, mound visits take up time. And, of course, then you got to have the umpire go out there and, break up the huddle on the pitcher's mound. So, again, I have no problem with that. So another thing, too, is pitchers who warm up must face a batter. So a pitcher who is sent to the mound to warm up between innings must now face at least one batter. MLB said there were 24 occasions last season that a pitcher warmed up between innings and was replaced before throwing a pitch, adding approximately 3 minutes of dead time per event. So, again, I'm looking at an article on USA Today. And then the other thing, too, is a wider runner lane, and that's going to first base. So the runner lane towards first base will now include the space between the foul line and the infield grass. That adds 18 to 24 inches to the runner's lane. So, and MLB said this allows batters to take a more direct path to first base while retaining protection from interference. So I don't have a problem with that either. Yeah, so listen, I'm all for the new rules. So, obviously, well, the second base rule in extra innings, yeah, no, that we can get rid of. But stuff like this, I have no complaints with that. So yeah, that's regarding the rule changes. So now let's get into some of the other off-season news. So the Mets are one of the teams in on Yamamoto, but they did make a trade recently with the Brewers, and obviously, David Stearns, coming in, and used to be a part of the Brewers organization. So the Mets acquired Adrian Hauser and Tyrone Taylor from the Brewers in exchange for pitching prospect Coleman Crow. So Hauser actually used to be a decent starter for the Brewers. He's dealt with injuries recently, but the Mets are a team that needs pitching help, and listen, he could be a guy that's a low risk trade that ends up turning out, and that's kind of what the Mets have been doing. They signed Luis Severino, which, again, if Severino can return to at least somewhat of what he used to be, that could also be a decent signing. But yeah, he had a 3.22 ERA across 142 innings in 2021. But in 2022 and 2023, he had a 4.73 ERA. So, but yeah, he's missed time with injuries. So, again, we'll see if he can maybe return to form from a couple years ago. So that's recent news there. Also, you had Andrew McCutchen re-signing with the Pirates. So he came back to the Pirates last year. Obviously, he spent multiple years on different teams. I mean, he was with the Yankees, the Giants, the Phillies, the Brewers. He bounced around a little bit. But, then he came back to Pittsburgh last year. And actually, let's look at his stats. So, I mean, he wasn't too bad last year. He did say, though, that that the rebuild window is done. Like, this is now the time for the Pirates to contend. Pirates got some young players that they could build off of, but I mean, listen, they are in a weak division. That's what definitely benefits them. But, again, I don't know. So, yeah, he was with the Giants, the Yankees, the Phillies. He was actually with the Phillies for 3 seasons. Then he was with the Brewers in 2022, and then 2023 came back to the Pirates. But yeah, I mean, he was an MVP, All-Star. His best season. I mean, he was really consistent with the Pirates. His career high in home runs for a single season was in 2012. Had 31 home runs, 96 RBIs. He had a 327 batting average. He was a solid player at one point in his career, and he could still be productive, just not like what he used to be. Last season, and he played in 112 games. He had 12 home runs, 43 RBIs, 256 batting average, 776 OPS. So he was, okay. Not spectacular, but again, I think that's where he belongs, is in Pittsburgh. So I mean, obviously he could retire at some point, but it's good to see him back there once again. But yeah, he also so MVP, 5-time All-Star, Gold Glove. But yeah, like I said, I mean, it's nice that he's back in Pittsburgh, but we'll see. And Pittsburgh got off to a good start last year. It's just everything kind of fell apart. So we'll see. And then Pittsburgh actually also made another move. They signed Martin Perez to a 1-year, $8 million deal. He was an All-Star back in 2022, posting a 2.88 ERA. But in 2023, ERA kind of jumped up a little bit. Ended up coming out of the rotation. And listen, I mean, the Rangers, getting Montgomery and Scherzer, it makes sense why that happened. So that was another move that the Pirates made. And really, I mean, there's just, other than that, it's just a lot of rumors and stuff. I mean, you had the Phillies, they're trying to add, obviously they were trying to add Yamamoto, but, we'll see what ends up happening with, like, Blake Snell, of course. The Giants are looking actually for a shortstop to maybe trade for, because it seems like Brandon Crawford's time with them is over. Guys they talked about were Ha-Sung Kim and Willie Adames, possibly. Padres actually, this is the other thing I was going to talk about. So the Padres look like they're going to bring in an all-star reliever from Japan, and that's Yuki Matsui. So he looks like he's going to be the replacement for Josh Hader. So he's 28 years old. So he made 5 all-star teams, recorded 236 saves, and posted a 2.43 ERA over 10 seasons for the Rakuten Golden Eagles. And he's actually an unrestricted free agent, so that means that they don't have to pay a posting fee to sign him. So Padres look like they at least have their replacement for Hader, which is nice. That's pretty much it. Also, the Giants are showing interest in Imanaga, the other Japanese player. So he might be the guy that people pivot to now that Yamamoto's off the market. Also, I'm seeing now this is from like a week ago, but but even so, like I've seen stuff even before that. It's just the Astros maybe trading some of their core guys like Framber Valdez could be on the trade market. Bregman. I guess because if you can't pay him, but at the same time, it's like, really, like, would the Astros really consider trading these guys? Like, I don't know why they would do that. But I guess if they can't strike a deal, I mean, if you trade him, at least you get something back for him. But I don't know. It's that would be really interesting if they ended up doing that. But I don't know. I can't see that happening. But yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really just all there's all rumors and stuff. I mean, Dylan Cease, Ken Rosenthal said that it's Dylan Cease is definitely going to get traded from the White Sox. There's still teams that need pitching help out there. Obviously, my team needs that. I've been seeing how Corbin Burns. Apparently, the Brewers don't want to deal him because they still want to compete. But listen, if somebody offers him something that blows them away, they might be inclined to say, you know what, maybe we got to trade him. So, trade him to the Yankees, please. That would be nice. But yeah, I mean, at this point, and we're still waiting on Bellinger. Right now it just seems like there's two teams that are the favorites to land him. It's coming down to either the Cubs or the Blue Jays. And obviously we'll get into that more in the next segment because we still, now that we got the big free agents off the board, most of them, Otani and Yamamoto were the biggest ones. You still got Bellinger out there. So, we'll get into, the rest of the big free agents that are out there at the moment. And then, and then obviously we'll look at the biggest contracts in baseball history as well. So, but yeah, I mean, at this point, we'll see what is the latest domino to fall. So, I mean, again, that's why, like, when I'm doing the shorts, I'm just posting whatever I see. Obviously, like, there might be some things that I talk about that it's pretty obvious, what the answer could be one way or the other. But again, it's just for you guys to view and discuss in the comments on them. So, actually, also another thing I wanted to mention. So I actually did catch a little bit of the Alex Verdugo press conference yesterday for the Yankees, and one of the reporters asked him, about how he played with, a lot of elite outfielders in Boston, and then he said most notably Mookie Betts, and Verdugo was like, "Yeah, I didn't play with Betts because he was part of the trade to get to trade away Mookie Betts." So I thought that, and listen, I can't really like blast somebody for doing that because I feel like sometimes like I would say I could maybe do something like that at some point, but yeah, that was pretty bad, especially because the guy was involved in the trade. But yeah, and it's funny because the Yankees actually picked up another Jeter. They picked up Jeter Downs, so yeah, they actually have like 2/3 of the trade package that the Red Sox got in the Mookie Betts trade. So all they need is Connor Wong, and they have the whole package. So, but yeah, that was just something that I wanted to bring up yesterday that I saw. But so before we go into our second break of the show, once again, I want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show and makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll go through the top remaining free agents, where they could potentially go. And, that'll be the third part of the show when we come back from our second break. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're just going to go through the top free agents that are remaining now with, obviously Yamamoto and Ohtani off the board. So obviously, there's still some big names out there. You got Bellinger. You have Blake Snell, of course. Bellinger, like I said, it seems like it's going to come down to either the Blue Jays or the Cubs. I feel like with the Blue Jays, they need to do something because that's a team that's been really disappointing the last couple of seasons, especially with their playoff appearances. They've gotten swept the last 2 years in the wild card round. 2022, obviously, they were at home. And the Mariners, they had that comeback win in Game 2. And, that was a bad way to end the season there. And then they just got swept by the Twins, who just, couldn't win a playoff series, but they play against the Blue Jays. And, they shut the Blue Jays down. And the Blue Jays, they got their flaws similar to the Yankees where, their lineup is predominantly right-handed. And, listen, Cody Bellinger, left-handed bat, they could use a guy like him. Now, the one thing is, can Bellinger replicate what he did in 2023? That's the one thing. He's asking for all this money. He's asking for a big contract. And a team's probably going to give it to him. But is it going to be worth it? And listen, if the Yankees didn't get Soto, I'd probably want Bellinger. Because, lefty, and again, another lefty bat at Yankee Stadium. I saw up close what he could do when he hit that moonshot off of Rodon into the second deck at Yankee Stadium. So, that's who I would go after. But again, can he replicate it? Because, the previous 2 years he wasn't a good hitter. So the team's going to give it to him. Now, he enjoyed being Cub. So, and the Cubs got to do something. So that's another team that really hasn't done anything this offseason. And, they got to, I shouldn't say they haven't done anything. They, obviously brought in Craig Counsell, replacing David Ross. So, we'll see with that managerial change how that affects the team. But got to bring in, they got to do something. And bringing Bellinger back definitely helps. Because, again, he had a good season there. So some of the other free agents. So Bleacher Report, I'm looking at. So they have some honorable mentions. There's a lot of relief pitchers that teams could still go after. The Astros had a couple of relievers. Hector Neris, Ryan Stanek, he's on there. Wandy Peralta with the Yankees. Kenyon Middleton, who the Yankees traded for at the deadline last year. David Robertson's another guy. You look at the starting pitchers. These are just they have honorable mentions section. So you got Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, Alex Wood, Zach Greinke, Hyun-Jin Ryu, James Paxton. A lot of these guys would be for back end for depth. Catcher, you got Gary Sanchez and Martin Maldonado. Gary Sanchez, you would get. Listen, had his moments last year with the Padres, but again, I don't know. He could be somebody that could be a DH. Maldonado is more for defense. First base / third base, you got Brandon Belt, Carlos Santana, C.J. Cron, Gio Urshela, Joey Votto. Shortstop, hey, listen, IKF is out there. Maybe somebody wants him. You never know. Utility guy. Some former Yankees for the outfield. You got Aaron Hicks, Joey Gallo, Bader. Michael Brantley actually is a free agent as well. If the Yankees didn't have so many outfielders, I'd take Brantley, even though Brantley's on the older side now, and the Yankees have had a history where they go after older players. Because I remember I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were talking about how Carlos Beltran wanted to be a Yankee, but that ended up, I guess it just didn't work out, so he ended up going to the Mets. And then, of course, the Yankees signed him after the 2013 season. He was with us until he was traded at the 2016 deadline. But yeah, he was on the older side. I mean, he was still productive for the Yankees, but obviously it wasn't prime Beltran. But yeah, so some of the so in the top 25, you got Whit Merrifield, kind of a utility guy. 38 extra base hits last year, 11 home runs, 67 RBIs. He had a .8 WAR. So he was at 25. You got Robert Stevenson, who was a relief pitcher with the Rays. So you got him. Tim Anderson. We'll see what happens with him now. Listen, Tim Anderson was a productive player over the course of his career. Last year was pretty rough, though. Jordan Hicks, which is a guy I know the Yankees were looking at. The Blue Jays got him. Right, the Blue Jays traded for him from the Cardinals to help out their bullpen problems. But listen, for the Yankees, I'm not worried about their bullpen. It's just the rotation is really the issue. But hey, listen, I'd be okay if the Yankees got him. And they could try to maybe fix him. Michael A. Taylor. Jorge Soler was an interesting one. The Yankees are supposedly linked to him. Batted .250 last year, 60 extra base hits, 36 home runs, 75 RBIs. So we'll see. Justin Turner's another guy that's underrated. I feel like whoever gets him on a cheap deal, I feel like that wouldn't be bad. He could still be a productive player. He was productive with the Red Sox last year. So we'll see. You got Jock Peterson, another left-handed outfielder. Kershaw. It's going to be interesting because again, he's still not sure on what he's going to do. So, you hope he comes back. You don't want to see him, retire just yet. But you could see, the wear and tear is really starting to, show with him. But listen, the guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He does have a World Series ring, but again, it's it was during the COVID season. But at least he does have a ring. But hopefully maybe he decides to come back. Listen, you got Ohtani, Ohtani's not going to pitch, but you got Ohtani. You signed Yamamoto. You traded for Glasnow. You got some guys coming back from injuries. I'd say, listen, you don't have to be the number one guy. You could be in the middle to the back end of the rotation. Yamamoto. You got Yamamoto and Glasnow there. You could be that number 3, number 4 starter at this point in your career. So, but again, it all depends on health. Hector Neris, who I mentioned before, with the Astros. You got Mike Clevenger. They have listed. Rhys Hoskins, that's somebody I talked about on one of the shorts. That could be an underrated free agent signing because, listen, Phillies, they told Bryce Harper, listen, you're going to play first base permanently. Rhys Hoskins obviously coming off of the ACL tear, so, it'll be interesting what happens there. But, yeah, so that could be somebody that teams potentially go after. Kiermaier, obviously, Gold Glove outfielder, left-handed bat. He was okay for the Blue Jays last year, so we'll see. You got Mitch Garver, who was had some pop last year for the Rangers, 19 home runs, 50 RBIs. JD Martinez, listen, on a one-year deal, JD Martinez had a bounce-back season with the Dodgers, 33 home runs, 103 RBIs. If he's still got whatever he's got left in the tank, I think is good enough for some teams. So I think he can go somewhere and still be productive. Lucas Giolito had a rough season last year. They got him listed 8-15 with a 4.88 ERA last year, 1.31 WHIP. It was a disaster last year for him. So we'll see if he can reinvent himself. But yeah, it was pretty rough. So you also got a Shota Imanaga, the other Japanese pitcher. So 7-5, 2.66 ERA, 1.02 WHIP. Again, that's somebody that teams could pivot to now with Yamamoto off the board. He actually was the starter and winning pitcher for Team Japan in the World Baseball Classic in 2023. He has a 2.96 ERA, 1.08 WHIP, almost 1,200 strikeouts in 1,100 innings pitched, pretty much over 8 seasons in the Japanese league. He had the best season of his career in 2022, finishing 12-4 with a 2.08 ERA and a .9 WHIP with 151 strikeouts. So, yeah, I mean, again, that could be a guy that people pivot to with Yamamoto off the board. Teoscar Hernandez, last year, 26 home runs, 93 RBIs with the Mariners. Guy maybe teams go after. Marcus Stroman, again, a team that could use the back of the, middle to the back of the rotation guy, possibly. You still got Matt Chapman out there as well. I forgot to mention his name. 17 home runs, 54 RBIs with the Blue Jays last year. Still got Jordan Montgomery out there, Blake Snell. Josh Hader, of course. Be nice if the Yankees can maybe get him somehow, but I don't think that's going to happen. Bellinger, like we talked about before. So, yeah, still a lot of big free agents left. Now, again, I don't really know where any of these guys are going to go. I mean, there's rumors. I mean, again, Bellinger, there's 2 favorites for him. Blake Snell met with the Angels, and he was at the Seahawks game, so maybe he goes and wants to pitch for the Mariners. It's going to be interesting. But now that you got Yamamoto and Ohtani off the board, now you're going to start to see some of these other guys start signing. So again, that'll give us more to talk about as we move right along here, of course. But again, like I always say, just got to wait and see how it goes. And the next domino will fall relatively soon, because now with both of those guys signed, things are really going to start to ramp up. And maybe we see trades as well, because you got some starting pitchers that could be on the move. So we just got to keep an eye on that as we move right along here in the offseason, almost into January already. So another around 2 months or so, and baseball is going to be back, and then that's when things really start to get fun. Because listen, football's ending, and then once that happens, baseball will eventually will take the reins from it. Because that's usually what happens when the Super Bowl ends. You'll see the social media pages post, baseball stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this topic. So when we come back from our final break of the show, we'll actually talk about the big contracts in MLB history. We'll go through them. I'll give you my thoughts on them, and that'll be it for the baseball show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are now going to go through the largest baseball contracts in MLB history with the contracts that have been signed recently. So we'll compare them. I have the list of them. So we'll go through them. So obviously at the top, of course, you got Shohei Ohtani. I mean, 10 years, $700 million. And then you see the years of the contract, 2024 to 2033, because, obviously they deferred all that money, $680 million of it, to once he retires. And then, he gets paid the remaining, $680 million. And, so it's basically going to be like Bobby Bonilla, except, with a lot more money. So, you got him, of course. And then you have Aaron Judge, who signed that 9-year, $360 million contract with the Yankees. Obviously, that'll extend from 2023 to 2031. And, so before the 2022 season, if people remember, which they do, he declined a $213 million extension offer before, his 62 home run season. And, that's the thing with Brian Cashman is makes things public. Like when he was negotiating contracts with Derek Jeter, made things public. Basically told Derek Jeter to his face what shortstops he'd rather have than him. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people just don't really aren't too fond of Brian Cashman. But yeah, that's what happened. They made it public. And listen, as a Yankee fan, I was nervous. I was afraid that we weren't going to get Judge back. But I kind of figured at the end of the year that the Yankees were going to somehow find a way to get him back. Until John Heyman tweeted that he was going, Arson Judge was going to the Giants. But I was definitely afraid for a minute that wasn't the case. But he ended up coming back, and I'm happy we got him back. And now the Yankees paired him with Juan Soto. So I'm pretty excited. All right, so then after that, as we move along here, we got Bryce Harper, of course. So he signed a $13 million deal. 13-year, $330 million deal. Yeah, that would be one heck of a discount, $13 million. For the whole contract. Well, that's basically going to be Ohtani for, the first 5 years of his contract until, eventually gets all that money back. But, so 13 years, $330 million. That was from 2019 to 2031. He won his second NL MVP in 2021 and led the Phillies, of course, to the World Series in 2022. That was a great signing for the Phillies. That's really paid off so far. Of course, the postseason, he's been great. Obviously, the Phillies, they fell a little short of their goal. I think everybody thought they were a lock to get back to the World Series, especially after beating the Braves. Nobody saw that they were going to, lose to the Diamondbacks. But credit to the Diamondbacks. They shocked the world with what they were able to do. But, yeah, so Bryce Harper, that contract is it's paid off so far, but hopefully for the Phillies they get that World Series championship. But it's going to be tougher now with what the Dodgers have done. So then of course another deal that is definitely paid off, especially after what happened this year, is the Rangers. They obviously went out and they signed Corey Seager before the 2022 season to a 10-year, $325 million deal. And, yeah, they got a World Series championship. He won another World Series MVP. So, yeah, it's safe to say that it's definitely paid off for the Rangers. Because, obviously, the first year, they signed him, they signed Simeon. But, the team wasn't great. Then you bring in Bruce Bochy and you improve the rotation. And, you get breakout performances, breakout seasons from some of these young guys. Adolis Garcia, the season that he had and how he produced in the postseason too. The Rangers, they're a good team. They were a good team, and they took it to the next level in the postseason. They defeated the Astros in a classic championship series, 7 games. which I honestly didn't think they were going to win it, but this year was different, and they were able to pull it out. And Corey Seager, he had that clutch game-tying home run in the World Series. He's a postseason performer, and he showed out. And so far, that contract has worked out for the Rangers. Then, of course, next up, you got Yamamoto's contract. So, 12 years, $325 million. It represents the most guaranteed dollars ever given to a pitcher. And, yeah, I mean, listen, what the Dodgers were able to do with Ohtani's contract, yeah, that's why they were able to get him. So, he got a big payday, and we'll see if that pays off. Then in the next contract, you got Garrett Cole signed through the 2028 season. 9 years, $324 million. I mean, so far it's paid off. I mean, he's won a Cy Young. Now, listen, we got bigger aspirations, of course. We got bigger goals. We want to see Garrett Cole pitching in the World Series. And you know what, Garrett Cole, in the postseason, he's done what he's supposed to do, except, against the Red Sox. But, the following year, what he was able to do against the Guardians, and, still he pitched well against the Astros, although the Yankees didn't win, but, gave him a chance. So in the chat, actually, I think the Dodgers, from Life Journey, they say, I think the Dodgers got Yamamoto because the Yankees were scared of offending Cole, and wouldn't bid above his contract. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason why. I mean, maybe it's possible, but I think it's just because the Yankees, like I saw on social media, they were being responsible, and they wanted Yamamoto, but they weren't going to, bid as much as the Dodgers because they still got other spots that they got to fill out with this team. I guess because that's maybe the kind of person that maybe Garrett Cole is. But I mean, also I think it's also because the Yankees just didn't want to, they didn't want to give Yamamoto, as much as they were going to offer him. Well, no, they didn't want to give Yamamoto. They didn't want to go past what they were going to offer him, and I think that's fine. Because, like I said before, I want to keep Juan Soto. So throw all of that money that you were going to throw at Yamamoto, give it to Juan Soto, so you can keep him here. Because I think that's a guy you give. As I'm showing these big contracts, that's who you give that to. Because he's his age. I mean, he's, what is he, 25? So I mean, that's who you give a 13-year contract to, especially because he's one of the best players in baseball. But I can't really disagree with it. I mean, it's possible, but I think the main thing is because they had a set number on what they were going to give Yamamoto, and they weren't going to go past that. And I can't blame him. $300 million contract they offered him, but he went for the bigger contract. So can't really say the Yankees didn't try. So then the next contract here, so we got Machado, 10 years, $300 million. I mean, we'll see what happens, with the Padres, because obviously, it's kind of a mess with what's going on over there. Obviously they couldn't afford Soto, so they had to trade him. You see Xander Bogaerts is also on here as well. Machado could be another player that may leave, because I think he has an opt-out, if I'm not mistaken. So it's possible. But, I mean, listen, he's been good with the Padres. So, but we'll see how long he's there for. He might not finish out the contract with them. So then you also got Trey Turner. Obviously, he signed his contract before the 2023 season. Same thing with Bogaerts, who's up next. Again, got off to a rough start, but the Philly fans backed him, and then he ended up finishing the year strong. So we'll see what happens in year two. Bogaerts, was decent with the Padres this year. He got off to a great start, but then kind of slowed down a little bit. But Bogarts is a solid player, so if they're able to keep him around, he's still got productive years left in him. And then you got a pair of A-Rod contracts to finish this up. So you got the Yankee contract, which was from 2008 to 2017. At the time, that was the richest free agent contract in MLB history. Got a world championship out of it. Listen, it was a bad contract towards the end because he didn't play at all in 2014. I mean, he missed a lot of games in general. Even 2017. I mean, he didn't even play in 2017. He was done. He retired. So, the Yankees kind of forced him into retirement. But listen, the Yankees got a championship with A-Rod. He was productive with them when he did play. But I'm not going to say the contract was great, but you know what? They got a championship out of it. So, and then of course they acquired him during his contract with the Rangers. When they traded Alfonso Soriano for him, and won an MVP. So, you take that. But I thought the Yankees were going to learn not to give players or trade for players with big contracts. But, then once A-Rod's contract, the second A-Rod contract was off the books, then they went and traded for Stanton, after the 2017 season. And now look at the Stanton contract and how that's but again, we didn't give it to him, but we inherited it, and now we're kind of paying the price for it 5 years later. So I'm hoping for a bounce-back year from Giancarlo. That would be nice. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Looking at those big contracts, so you see Yamamoto and Ohtani. Ohtani's, of course, at the top. Yamamoto's not at the top, but he's, right around there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it with the show for today. Obviously, make sure to tune in for the football podcast, which will air at 10:30 Eastern Time, so in about a half hour, a little over a half hour. So make sure to tune in for that. So I'll recap last night's Thursday night game, and of course preview all the games for this holiday weekend. So including the Monday games as well, because there won't be a show on Monday with it being Christmas. But yeah, so we at least with baseball had some stuff to talk about today. Of course, with Yamamoto signing with the Dodgers. Of course, again, not everybody's thrilled about it with him going to the Dodgers. I mean, listen, I'm not either. I mean, I would have liked for the Yankees to have gotten him. But listen, again, I want us to throw all the money we can at Juan Soto. Make sure he stays a Yankee. So, but yeah, now with Ohtani and Yamamoto off the board, that's going to get, the rest of these free agents to start signing with teams. So we'll have more stuff to talk about. But, yeah, again, that's pretty much it. Again, make sure to tune in for the GSMC football podcast. That, again, will be in about a half hour. And, yeah, so with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for watching. Once again, tune in about a half hour for the GSMC football podcast. And if not, enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. So, as always, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC baseball podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. I'll see some of you in a half hour. If not, have a good weekend. Happy holidays, and take care.